City of God Prison Empire is a very strange game with a lot of questionable decisions put into the creation of it. The main premise of this game is that in the daytime you're made to work in a prison where you manage and exploit your prisoners, but by night you're free to walk around Christ City and live your life how you see fit, whilst also building an empire in the background. Okay, so I want to add this into the video because I think it's worth mentioning given the fact that this was originally released in early access back in March of last year, and I want to try and talk about the changes that have been added since then. Okay, so the first major thing is that this game now has an English translation, which is something that it did not have when it was first released because it was only introduced in Chinese. But they soon decided to make it in English because English is the money-making language of the world, and they thought, let's corner the American, UK and wherever markets and make a whole lot more money. The translation is good for the most part, with a few exceptions to this. An example would be the shops. Some of the shops have an English translation on them, while some have a Chinese translation on them, which I'm not really sure why you would translate some of the signs but not all of them, but whatever, it's a very minor thing. Overall, it's quite an impressive translation considering it was changed from Chinese to English, two languages which are very, very different, with very different characters and everything really. Another big change that's happened since last March is the amount of DLC that's come out for this game. Now the thing is, there is more DLC here than you can shake a massive stick at. This is because the games company here has decided to release one DLC for every month this game has been out. That overall accounts to about £47.98, which is 3 times the amount of the actual base game. Now I'm not saying whether or not this company should make this amount of DLC. The only thing I am saying is that it's a bit weird how much DLC has been made in such a short amount of time. And it also makes... Now if you've clicked on this video not knowing anything about this game, you might think that this game is something like Prison Architect or something like that, and in a way you're right, but you're very much not, because there's a lot more to it than just that. An example of this would be that there's a whole entire city that you can just walk around and explore in and buy stuff. And you can do such fun activities like join local gangs, buy medication, buy a table, go get a hand job, things, you know, ordinary things that you do on a daily basis. Okay, that last one we don't actually see in the game, but I've seen enough League of Gentlemen to know what happens in massaging parlours. But going on a quick side tangent for a moment, it does feel like this game was made by 2 different people. Actually no, scrap that, it was made by a bunch of people, but one half of the room wanted to do a city type game, the other half wanted to do a prison, and this debate went on for several hours until a man, probably the manager, just came in and said, screw it, we're doing both. Everyone happy? No? That's good. Now the game has a lot of content which you have to just think, why is this in here? An example would be the fact that you can check the warden's vital organs to see if there's any type of disease or how well they're doing. This is quite strange how someone would put this in a prison simulator game of all things. And not only that, the game wants you to go to the doctors every now and then to see if the warden has any type of cancer or something like that, which again is odd that this is in a simulator regarding prisoners, but whatever, I'll just go with it for now. Now these 2 bars at the top show how much energy the warden has and how happy he is. Again, very odd to put in a prison simulator game. This should really be the energy of the prisoners and how happy they are, instead of the energy and the happiness of just the warden. But anyway, I'm not here to judge. Oh wait, no I am. This is kind of what my YouTube channel is, but whatever. Now these two bars are pretty similar in the way that they can be improved in basically the same functions. Like, you can improve both the happiness and the energy by going to sleep, or eating, or getting those aforementioned hand jobs that I was talking about earlier. A lot of things, a lot of strange things that shouldn't be in this game, but they are for some reason. The bars at the top are the types of research that the warden can do during the day, and this is where the two bars on the left hand side come into play, because they will continually go down with the more research that you do. Now there are three types of research that can be done. These are operation, tactical, and something else I can't remember the name of. Let me look it up quickly. Product, which is the first one, the green one. Also on Empire mode there's this other thing. I don't know what it is. I don't really care either. Essentially, these three types of research will allow you to level up certain things in the game. The first one, product, will allow you to level up the amount of items that you can produce as well as what items you can produce. The second one will allow you to improve your prison, so for instance it will allow you to improve the kitchen so you're not just feeding your prisoners tinned vegetables and sandwiches that don't look right. The last one will allow you to level up the amount of crime that your prisoners can do, because as we all know, if you want to become a better criminal you have to go to the prison warden and he'll teach you how to pickpocket, pick a lock and shoot a gun, because that's how life works. Now moving on to the city side of things, there are a few different gangs that control different parts of the city. These gangs in decreasing order of power are the Illuminati, the Bear Boys, definitely not Jesus, the local tile shop and whatever this guy is called, and many others that you're never going to play because no one actually cares about this game enough to actually play it for long enough that you'll actually run into these people. Now there are a few notable assets in this game that are worth talking about. The first one I want to talk about is the music. Now there is quite a lot of music in this game. Most of it is in regard to the shops that you go in, as a lot of them have different soundtracks. So they're probably repeated, but a lot of different types of shops have their own little soundtrack. But in terms of the prison, it's just one song, which is strange because you're going to spend most of the time in the prison and not in the shops buying furniture and getting hand jobs. Also, despite the amount of music in this game, there is little to no sound effects for the actions that you take during the game. There's no sound from the prisoners, or the guards, or any of the NPCs. There's no sound for the vehicles or the construction work. The only sound effect is when you go into a shop you hear a slight ding, and that's pretty much it. That's the only sound effect that they could come up with. I mean, I checked the settings, I haven't muted sound effects, so it kind of baffles me how they have that much music, but they have very little sound effects. Other assets that are worth mentioning are the graphics. Now the graphics are fairly basic, they're just 2D graphics, and that would probably be all I have to say about it, except the fact that some of the prisoners are supposed to be imitating real life people. So you have prisoners that are imitating people from The Walking Dead or YouTube. Yeah, when you're trying to do that with 2D graphics, and not very good 2D graphics at that, it's not going to work out very well. In fact, I think it's fair to say they're not going to look anything like the people that they're trying to imitate. Okay, so in this game there's 3 different game modes, and the first one on the list is Story. Now, compared to the other modes, Story isn't that great. Like, it's trying to tell a story that isn't very well developed, and it really suffers because of that. Because to make the story mode, they have to take out quite a few things from the Empire mode. The biggest thing is in the city part of the game, there is no longer about 30 different locations. There's about 5, or at least there's 5 when you start off. And this isn't particularly great. You're limited to the amount of gangs you can join, you're limited to the amount of places you can go. I mean, most of the different stores are just repeats of the others, which is fine, I suppose, when you've got 20 different roads to make. But the illusion that all of the shops have different things is completely gone in the story mode. Now, most people would think that because they've sacrificed so much, there must be an interesting story behind this. No, not really. It's pretty generic. It's just some person's brother died who you don't really care about, and you're now trying to rebuild the city in his honour. How do you do this? By creating a prison. Well, not creating a prison. The prison's already there, but you kind of have to expand on it as part of the story. But basically, you have to remake the prison from what the other warden had made it into, which, from what we've been told, the other warden, he didn't do much of a great job in running the prison. In fact, the only guard you can interact with in the game is basically just going on about how you're doing such a great job compared to the other warden, which is weird because most of my prisoners had lung cancer and were freezing to death with no food. So it does beg the question as to what the other warden was like. But the best part is the plan that this guy has to rebuild the city in his brother's honour. How does he do this? By creating a prison and then getting everyone to make t-shirts and desks and sell them off for reasonable prices. Yeah, that's gonna get you to run the city in no time. Like, what a waterproof plan that is. But all in all, the differences between the Empire mode and the story mode are fairly... they're not really that big. I mean, the biggest one is the city part that I mentioned, but the only real inclusion that the story mode has compared to the Empire mode is you get this fat git telling you what you can and can't do every so often, as well as the fact that you can't really customize your warden. Well, you can change his clothes as soon as you get control of the game, but you can't really change his face, which is a bit... it's fine. Also, I've noticed now that you can't really change the gender of the warden not even in the Empire mode or the customized mode, which is... it's weird because I feel like, it's 1997. There are female wardens. I mean, we're living in an era where Zeppelins are a good investment. Of course, female wardens exist. But anyway, moving on to the Empire mode. Now, the Empire mode is, it's basically the same minus the story. But the biggest inclusion is that you can customize your character. But it's weird because it's not just the clothing and the face. You can also create your own backstory for your character. And that's weird. But you can also... I mean, you can obviously change his ethnicity, and that's fine. But you can also change where he comes from, like which country. But it doesn't really give you a large selection of countries. It only gives you about 8. So makes you wonder why he put that in the first place. Also, they emphasize a lot on the Mexican identity, which is fine if this was an American game, but I'm not too sure how many Mexican people were living in China in the late 1990s, but I'm fairly confident the number isn't that high. Also, another feature of Empire mode is you can give your own warden a backstory. Like, there's a lot to choose from. I think I gave him the backstory that he's from, like, a crime family, and that he has to live up to that legacy. But this isn't the story mode. This is just Empire mode. Empire mode is where you just play the game. So, I don't know why they put this in, because as far as I know, it doesn't actually matter, because it's never brought up in conversation. The final mode is custom mode. I looked at it once and said to myself, nope, not touching that with a 10-foot pole, because it is basically just Empire mode, except you can change certain things with it. Like, you can change the amount of money you can get in the game. Whether it's higher or lower is up to you. You can change the amount of tax you can get on items. Again, whether it's higher or lower. And the reason I looked at it and went no is because I was afraid of messing up the entire game and making it unplayable. I mean, it was fairly unplayable already, but making it a bit more unplayable. Okay, so my conclusion is basically that this game really does feel like it was made by two different developers, and the game really suffers for that because it could have been a decent enough prison simulator. Instead, it was just a bit of a prison simulator and then a bit of something else, which I didn't quite like. In terms of where this game ranks, I'd say it's in between Trivia Vault and Avalon. Reason I say this is because, well, I was going to put it above Avalon first of all, but then I realised, oh wait, at least Avalon had something to it. This really doesn't. It's just boring. It's just really boring. And that's the biggest complaint I have with it. It's just really boring. And you shouldn't play it unless you're a fan of really boring content.